tells all about a fantastic tampon called Rely from Procter & Gamble.
In 1975, Procter & Gamble created Rely Tampons, and they were excited to get it to market. After all, this would be their chance to see if it worked, since women were not involved in the product's design or production at all. In one of the largest marketing campaigns in history, P&G sent 60 million sample packs of Rely tampons to 80% of US households. Overnight, they claimed 15% of the tampon market. Rely tampons were the tampon of the future.
Totally different from any other tampon.
But here we are, in the future, and Rely tampons are nowhere to be found. So what happened? Well, turns out they didn't work. The synthetic tampon, essentially a tea bag stuffed with wood pulp, claimed it could absorb an entire menstrual flow. Unfortunately, it did much more than that. It also created ulcerations in users' vaginal walls, creating a breeding ground for bacteria. Rely tampon users, many of them young and healthy, developed toxic shock syndrome in droves, reporting infection, diarrhea, vomiting, swelling, and pain. But they were the lucky ones, because they survived.
It strikes about 30 out of every million women of menstrual age. About 1 in 12 cases is fatal.
Patricia Kim, an Iowa woman, died days after trying Rely tampons. The young woman was an organ donor, but only her eyes were salvageable. The rest of her organs had been too damaged by toxic shock syndrome. 5 years later, 16-year-old Robin Lynn Spooner died of the same thing. Procter & Gamble's corporate strategy of ignoring the problem was failing, but they stayed the path, choosing time and again not to warn their customers of the risk. Months later, the decision was out of their hands. After battles with the CDC and the FDA, Procter & Gamble agreed to recall Rely tampons, a decision that would cost them $75 million.
Procter & Gamble, which makes the tampon, says the recall does not imply fault.
But as part of their agreement, P&G absolved themselves of any fault, and that paved a bright road for their future, ready to absorb a heavy flow of cash headed their way. Shortly after Rely's public failure, Procter & Gamble launched Always tampons, and 13 years later, they bought Tampax. P&G is currently the largest tampon producer in the world. Lessons learned, I'm sure.
Remember, they named it Rely.
To hear more of this story, listen to The Brand at swindled.com.